it wouldn't be an MJ thing if he wasn't in it. And that was part of the appeal for me was my initial interest was like, oh, I finally get to jam with this guy, on screen. And I thought that we would find something interesting together, and since this was like his big movie, his first one with like, actors and a crew and all this stuff, that weren't just his gang of immortals. I think he had sort of people holding the purse strings who were like, yeah, you're great, but we want somebody famous to get our money kind of back,
I created this entire market. You said they were the best engineers in the world. I said they're the best engineers in Canada.
But hey, I wanted to tell you, I loved Blackberry, man. I thought it was great. I thought this was honestly, like, it sounds like I'm kind of blowing smoke up your ass, but maybe one of the best Canadian movies I think I've ever seen. Like, it was really, really good.
Awesome.
That Matt Johnson, though, he's a hell of a director, though. I really loved The Dirties, and I even really liked Operation Avalanche. So when you got involved with Blackberry, I suppose you were probably already aware of his work, right?
Yeah, I've been a fan of his since The Dirties, and think I met him at must have been what would have been like the last Genie Awards proper before the hybrid unnecessary vulgar hybridization of our two stupid award shows into one asinine award show. No, I shouldn't say that. They gave me some. The awards are nice. The show, not so much. Anyway, I met him there, and I came right up to him, and I said, I'm a big fan of The Dirties, and he was quite rude to me. He maintains that he was just so starstruck and thought that I was messing with him. I maintain that he's just was just an arrogant psycho at the moment. But anyway, I've been regardless. I was a fan for a long time, and then I got to work with his editor, Kurt Laub, who did a pass of Random Acts of Violence.
Nice.
And when we were working on Random Acts together, MJ came for a visit, and he brought donuts, and he was like, I want to make a movie about the Blackberry. Is that something you might be interested in? And I pulled a fucking Blackberry out because I had one. I used one every day in earnest until literally 2 years ago. And so, pardon me?
Did you really? Wow, that's amazing. Why?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it is a superior device, number one, because typing on keys makes infinitely more sense than dirtying up a screen and putting fingerprints all over it. Like, it just, but also, because it was designed and developed and manufactured for the most part in my country. And yeah. We're not a huge country where that is just a given, right? And there's a tiny population, smaller, I think, or around the population of California, basically spread out over this landmass the size of Russia. So if something's made here, I want to, and it's worth using, I would love to, I don't know. Every time I bought one, I was like, well, there was a line of Canadians who worked, to make this, so that's a good thing. So that seemed like a thing that would make sense. And then he wrote a thing, and it was spectacular. He wrote the hell out of the script. Like, the movie has a real kind of punk rock shagginess to it. Thank you. Like a punk rock kind of grizzle and fat to it. It's dirty. That would imply that we found all of it on the day, and it just isn't that. That script is as colorful and contradictory and inconvenient and nuanced, and as shaggy as the movie is, the script was equally so in the best way possible. So I knew that they interpreted a real event in a really, really awesome way, and that this was going to be a ride. And then the last piece is that, like, thank you. The last piece of it is also that, like, I know he's got some very loyal fans, and there's some kids that have, like, done stuff that I've done. So I thought that, like, for those people that are paying attention, it might be people might get a kick out of seeing him and I in something together.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was great as Doug as well, and yeah, he's a good actor too. But I was read somewhere though that he didn't originally want to be in the movie; that you had to convince him.
Yeah, I did. Because like I'm an MJ fan, and if you're a fan of MJ's stuff, he's in it. You know, he's like Branagh or Stallone, and to me, it's just like it wouldn't be an MJ thing if he wasn't in it. And that was part of the appeal for me. Was my initial interest was like, oh, I finally get to jam with this guy, on screen, and I thought that we would find something interesting together, and since this was like his big movie, this first one with like, actors and a crew and all this stuff, that weren't just his gang of immortals, I think he'd had sort of people holding the purse strings who were like, yeah, you're great, but we want somebody famous to get our money kind of back, and so I just was like, no, I'll fight that fight anytime. But like, I think it'll be shittier if you're not Doug.
Well, I mean, he was great in it, but I also really liked Glenn Howerton though. I thought he was kind of interesting casting. How did that happen? Because that wasn't not the guy that you would have necessarily thought to cast in a role like that, but he was awesome.
He absolutely destroys it. How they got to him is something I don't have. I feel uncomfortable speaking on because I'm not a producer or anything like that. I'll say that he was relative to like at least Matt and our involvement. He was a late comer to the posse, but you'd never know it. Like it looks like the movie was built around him, and that the part was written for him because he is channeling something truthful and special and really exhilarating and funny, and it made my job so much easier, right? I just got to go in and play counterpoint to that and react to whatever he was putting out there, and it was all very definitive and easy to react to and in a really good way. So one of my favorite things of the whole movie is what Glenn does in it.
Well, yeah, I liked his line about Waterloo, where the vampires live. I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, what can I do for you?
Okay, picture a cell phone and an email machine all in one thing. There is a free wireless internet signal all across North America, and nobody has figured out how to use it. It's like the Force. Sorry, have you seen Star Wars?
No.
Did you get a kick also out of, I mean, you must have, working with like Michael Ironside and kind of all these great Canadian actors, Saul Rubinek as well. Like it was kind of like it was like the best of Canadian cinema. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was neat. It was something that was like, I think it was pretty important to MJ too. Like he and I are very ideologically aligned when it comes to what we think our movies should be and what we want them to be, and so I know like in his mind he wanted it to be just that, and so that's why we also got Mark Critch, and even if he's an American, he's lived in Canada for 20 years, and Martin Donovan, Vancouver via New York, so we've got a pretty amazing kind of Dirty Dozen there, and getting to do scenes with Ironside every day was just like, oh shit, Richter from Total Recall is like yelling at me. That's pretty intense. That's really, really cool. And then Saul was my dad in the Trotsky, so it was this like super cool thing to kind of reconnect with him and to jam with him again. And we were both like, oh fuck, we forgot how fun this is when we do stuff together. So it was like, yeah, man, it was really cool. I the whole time, there just kept being this message that I was feeling, which was, I kind of think this is a bit of a Goon type of thing, where the subject matter, the time, the people in it, all of it is kind of like conspiring to make something kind of special that I think people are going to be psyched about, which is how it feels.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can tell you when I saw it, I was kind of blown away by it. I mean, I guess, I don't know, I feel like in Canada there is, and it's too bad, like a bit of a prejudice against their own movies. But I think part of the reason there is because often when you see a Canadian movie, they set it in this weird kind of country that's not Canada and not the US. And I think it's something, well, for me, it's always very frustrating. It's like, why even bother making it a Canadian movie than trying to be a US ripoff? But this is distinctly Canadian, unapologetically Canadian. And I think that's what our movies need to be.
Absolutely. And I think that I have for years railed against the sort of like, you see the CN Tower in the background and you hear and you know the people on camera are from here, and then someone takes out their wallet and there's like Benjamin Franklin on it or some fucking thing on the money, and it's just this, out of a really servile sense of pre-censorship, because the Americans don't fucking care. We're the only ones that think about this stuff, and it begs mentioning that this isn't specific to English Canada. French Canada doesn't suffer any of these issues.
Not at all.
Doesn't worry about it. Correct. And we have, I can name, Cronenberg, Egoyan, Fubar, Trailer Park Boys, the Goon Stuff, but those are sadly outliers, I think. And so anyway, so we just need to make more shit and stop worrying if somehow there's such a thing as being prohibitively Canadian.
No, I mean, there's not. I mean, the thing is also, I think that English Canadians would go and see more Canadian movies, and there would be a much more of an audience for it if they felt they were represented. I think that's what the Quebec audience has gotten right. I mean, I live in Montreal, so I see that firsthand. Yes. We have our own stars that walk down the street. I have to say one thing that's interesting is at one point in the movie, Matt, as Doug pulls out a Ninja Turtles wallet, I had the exact same wallet.
Attaboy. I think that's Matt's actual wallet. I know most of the 90s action figure Toys R Us ephemera at Research in Motion, most of that is actually from MJ's house. So I would be very surprised if that wallet, the Velcro Ninja Turtles wallet, wasn't actually his.
Have any of the people that you guys are playing in the movies actually seen it so far, and have you gotten any of their reactions from it? Because I'm curious, because I mean, I think, I feel like even though I wouldn't say that, it's definitely not hagiography. You can definitely see that mistakes were made along the way. I feel like it does still celebrate the fact that there was, some real genius there, and that, people made mistakes, but nobody was evil or necessarily out to really fuck anyone over.
No.
Any of them reacted?
No, I agree with you. I don't think the villains in this movie are at Research in Motion.
No.
I think the villains are laissez-faire American capitalism and all that shit. As far as I understand, only Jim Balsley has seen it. He saw they put together a private screening for him about 3 weeks ago, and then he came to our Toronto premiere on Friday night, and so I got to meet him, which was an absolute trip. I suspect an even bigger trip for Glenn than it was for me. So that was really crazy. Mike and Doug, I have no idea. We believe we know that they know it exists. The question is whether or not they care, because they are sort of, just these sort of uber wealthy aliens that live on their sort of respective Xanadus in the KW area. They all still live within 20 minutes of Kitchener-Waterloo, which is the coolest, Balsillie included. So maybe it blips on his radar. I don't know if it will, but either way, I think we did the story justice.
I do hope that they reconnected, because that was one of the most affecting parts of the movie, I think, was their friendship.
Doug and Mike are very good friends. We know that.
Okay, good. Gotta ask you also, I liked your hair in the movie, the gray. I thought that looked pretty cool, especially at the end when it gets kind of all slick and stylized. Was that dye or was that a wig? I have to ask. As somebody with
they're both
curious.
they're both wigs. The first one was just kind of one that was fastened with clips and bobby pins and shit. The other one was they slicked my hair down, glued it to my head, put on a bald cap, put the wig on top of the bald cap. It was about 2 hours in the chair each way. So they did incredible work. I abhorred wearing them. I will think twice about ever wearing one again on camera ever, because it was too fucking hot to wear a house cat taped to my head. I think it looks pretty crazy cool.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. I hope the Flash.
Likewise. Likewise. Let me know, Chris. I'll see you soon, buddy.
See you then.
What are they paying you?
I shouldn't say.
They're paying me $10 million.
Yeah, me too.